Good evening. A quorum being present, the Great Barrington Annual Town Meeting for 2026 will resume now where we adjourned on Saturday. I will not repeat all the procedural instructions. We do have a different color card for raising today, so you've gotten a new one as you came in the door. Is there a motion from the Finance Committee on Article 19?
Yep, that's me. Article, it's not on. It's not on. Got it? I can't. The cord's too tight. I move that the town vote to appropriate $40,000 from free cash for deposit into the town's unemployment trust fund.
Motion has been made and seconded. Is there an explanation?
Explanation.
Yeah, but she's taking the mic away. That's okay. This article transfers funds into the town's unemployment trust fund, a reserve account used to cover unemployment benefits when claims arise. Maintaining an adequate balance in this fund allows the town to manage these costs more predictably and avoid unexpected impacts on the operating budget.
Is there any discussion or questions on the motion for Article 19? Seeing none, all in favor, please raise your cards. Thank you. All opposed? Motion carries at 5 after 6. Article 20. Is there a motion?
I move that the town vote to appropriate and transfer $31,933.99 from the short-term rental special revenue fund to the Affordable Housing Trust Fund.
Motion has been made and seconded to transfer funds to the Affordable Housing Trust Fund. Is there an explanation?
This article allocates the fees collected from specific short-term rental impact fees to the Affordable Housing Trust Fund in keeping with the intent of the town's approval of Article 32 of the 2022 Annual Town Meeting warrant. These STR impact fees are not the same as a rooms tax revenue which goes into the general fund. These are 3% impact fees on professionally managed STRs and on STRs in 2 or 3 family dwellings collected in accordance with the town's acceptance of General Law Chapter 64G, Sections 3D Parent A and 3D Parent B, respectively. Last May, the town meeting transferred $71,747.17. Further collections since then total $31,933.99.
Are there questions concerning this motion? Seeing none, all in favor, please raise your cards. Thank you. You may put them down. All opposed, raise your cards. Motion passes at 6:07. For Article 21, is there a motion from the Consumer
Protection Agency?
Preservation Commission?
Community Preservation Committee. Hi, I'm Karen Smith. I'm the chair of such. I move that the town appropriate from the Community Preservation Fund annual revenues the following amounts recommended by the Community Preservation Committee for committee administrative expenses in FY27 and for the payment of the debt service and costs related thereto for the Memorial Field Improvement Project authorized by a vote on June 6, 2022 annual town meeting, and reserve for future appropriation for community preservation projects the following reserve amount with each item to be considered as a separate appropriation. FY27 reserves. From the 27 reserves for the Historic Resources Reserve, $67,500. From the FY revenues for community housing, $67,500. From the FY revenues for open space recreations, $0, because it covers it with the Memorial Field. FY27 appropriations, revenues for debt service on the Memorial Field project and costs related thereto, $53,513. FY27 revenues for the administrative expenses for $10,000, and FY27 balance revenues for the FY27 budgeted reserve, $476,487.
Is there a second? Motion made and seconded. Is there further explanation?
Yes, there is. Good afternoon, good evening, whatever. My name's Karen Smith. I'm the chair of the Community Preservation Committee, and which the appointed board that oversees the implementation of the CPA for the town. It was adopted in 2012. Funds are raised by a surcharge on property tax bills and are supplemented each year by the state, funded by surcharges on transaction at the registry and deeds statewide. In FY26, the CPA surcharge cost for the median value single-family home is approximately $164. The median home value in Great Barrington is $512,000. Low and moderate income seniors can apply for an exemption from the CPA surcharge. You want more explanation? There they
If you
are.
think you need it, you could take a few more minutes or
Oh,
not.
okay, whatever you say, Mr. Moderator. I read it up there. $9.4 million awarded, a total of 98 grants, 23 affordable housing grants totaling 3.9, 43 historic preservation grants totaling $3 million, 32 open space and recreation grants totaling $2.5 million. The benefits to this community have been 170 new units of affordable housing. Numerous historic sites have been preserved, including rare structures such as the Newsboy, Wagon House, and Trolley Shelter. Significant town properties, Town Hall, Mason Library, Ramsdale Library, and landmark buildings, Mahawi Theater, St. James Place, Clinton Church, First Congregational Church. 100-plus acres of open space recreation areas have been preserved. Windy Hill Farm, Riverwalk, North Plain Farm, River Run Farm, 7 walking trails built and improved, CHP Old Route 7, Thomas and Palmer Preserve, Housatonic Riverfront Trail, and numerous park improvements, McAllister and Memorial Field, and the projects have been spread throughout the town and Housatonic.
Are there questions, comments, or proposed changes to the motion for funding the administrative side of the CPA operation? Seeing none, all in favor, raise your cards. All opposed? Motion carries at 611.
Well,
Article
isn't this-
21.
Isn't this expeditious? Article 22.
22? 20?
Yes, sir.
Oh, I'm sorry. Article 22. We just finished Article 21. I'm sorry.
Yeah, the next one up is 22. Okay.
Yes.
I move that the town appropriate from the Community Preservation Fund from FY27 and from the fund balance the following amounts, recommended by the Community Preservation Committee, with each item to be considered a separate appropriation. Affordable Housing Trust, $325,000. Affordable housing. Historic Resources, Unitarian Universalist Meeting of South Berkshire, $37,000. Dubois Freedom Center, $200,000. Town Clerk Document Preservation, $50,000. Town Elmwood Cemetery Monument, $75,000. Town Brown Mausoleum Preservation, $91,000. Open Space and Recreation, Town Old Maids Park Engineering and Design, $50,000. And 8 Town Housatonic Playground Improvements of $165,000, totaling $993,000.
Is there a second? Thank you. There are explanations of the individual items in the warrant, I believe, in the
Absolutely.
insert with the warrant. Would you like to go through them before I ask for questions, or do you want to go through them one at a time?
Good evening, Mr. Moderator. Chris Rembold, Castle Hill Avenue, and your town planner. This year, the CPC recommends 8 projects to the voters. As Karen said, there's 1 grant in housing for $325,000, 5 in historic preservation, and 2 in open space and recreation. And just briefly, as Karen said, the projects are really spread throughout town. This happens quite serendipitously. This year we have 3 up in Housatonic, 3 downtown, 1 at the cemetery, and 1 town-wide, being the Affordable Housing Trust. The Affordable Housing Trust is seeking funds to continue its support, creation, and preservation of affordable housing in Great Barrington. To date, it's funded the acquisition of land for affordable housing. It's funded down payment assistance grants as well as rental assistance grants. It seeks funds to continue those programs. Its emphasis next year for FY27 will be on down payment assistance grants as well as development potentially of some of the land that it has acquired for affordable housing purposes. The first historic preservation grant is a continuation of the Unitarian Church's preservation of its historic building in Housatonic on Main Street. Last year, you funded the first phase of the roof, and this year, the CPC recommends funding the second phase. This will close out the roof project, making the building tight and secure. The Du Bois Freedom Center is the former Clinton Church, which is downtown. Will become the Du Bois Freedom Center. You funded it in the past, various stages. You're seeing pictures of the stabilization of that crumbling structure. And that last picture is the structure being raised several feet above grade. That's the grant for, that we're recommending to you this year. It's $200,000 towards a total phase project of $1.6 million. So they're leveraging quite a lot of funds to make this phase happen. The next historic project is proposed by the town clerk to begin to develop a plan to preserve historic public documents in Town Hall. Many of these are required by law to be retained and preserved in physical form. What you're looking at here is the original town meeting warrant on the right from 1761. As Michael alluded to the other night, this was calling the attendees to assemble in the name of His Majesty the King, interestingly. On the left is historic birth and death records. All of these are required to be maintained, and so this is the first step in that work. The town is also proposing funds towards Elmwood Cemetery monument restoration. If you walk the cemetery, you see many of the monuments, unfortunately, are falling over or in danger of falling. So this is the first phase of preservation work of the historic stones. Another cemetery project, historic preservation project, down at the Mahawi Cemetery, which is down by Big Y Mobile, is a preservation of the Brown Mausoleum. This is to fix the roof and ensure that the structure doesn't fall down. There's space inside of it, so it can be used for burial. So this is seeking preservation of the mausoleum. In the open space and recreation category, the town is seeking $50,000 towards the engineering and design study at Old Maids Park. Currently, we are undertaking a community engagement plan. As we move forward into the next year, this funding will help look at the feasibility of the ideas that citizens are discussing. And finally, at Housatonic Playground, the proposal here is to resurface the basketball court, which is cracking and sort of misaligned, and also prepare it so it can also be a pickleball court. And that is a summary of your projects this year.
Thank you. I'm going to go through these in order unless there is a comment on all of them taken together, and ask for comment or changes as we go through them one by one. I believe that I was told in advance that Sharon wanted to say something in general,
Okay.
but Denise, you're at the microphone. So
Let Sharon go first.
Sharon Gregory, Hollenbeck Avenue. I was chair of the Finance Committee when we adopted the CPA in 2012. I was for it because I thought it would help our town pay for items that we would have difficulty funding otherwise. This applied to historic properties like Town Hall. We restored the worn stone stairs and places like Mason Library, the overhang, but I feel like we've gone further astray. The town now collects $1 million annually for these grants. They are recommended by 8 CP committee members and presented to the town meeting like tonight. It does not have the Finance and Select Board review as a committee like all of our other budget items. So we need to be extremely prudent in reviewing these different items. Just like we would with other expenditures. After all, we just wrote a check for $5 million for the marijuana legal settlement, and we are struggling to cut expenses, and we haven't cut much. Thank you.
I'm now going to begin going down them one at a time, and I'll ask for comment or changes by the list. For item number 1, which is the affordable housing appropriation.
I'm not, can I comment on what I'm commenting on? Or do we have to go through each
I
line?
am trying to call for comment on item number 1 at this point.
I don't have a comment on 1 through...
No item on 1? Does
5.
anybody have any comment on number 1? Excellent. Does anybody have any comment or proposed change on number 2, which is one of the historic preservation items? Seeing none, how about number 3, the Du Bois Freedom Center? Okay. Number 4, town clerk document retention. A question on the town clerk document retention?
Yes. I just want to make sure that we are careful. Of course, what Chris Rembold showed was a valuable document, and those need to be preserved. I just want to make sure that $50,000 doesn't go to all the projects that people want to preserve. In particular, the 180 boxes that were on the second floor were donated, were picked up by the Historic Commission, and those still need to be cataloged and certified and, be insurable. So $50,000 wouldn't go very far for that kind of expense. But in general, I think that we need to have a more rigorous process before we adopt documents to be preserved. There's no way that 108, the photographer was a neighbor of mine, and I know he took a lot of pictures of me, and they're not historic or need to be preserved. So if somebody could address whether or not that kind of activity versus the clerk's file, I would appreciate it.
Your question is whether this particular project for which they're asking $50,000 extends to anything beyond Town Hall.
Yes.
Okay. Is there an answer?
Yes, through you, Mr. Moderator, Town Manager Liz Hartsgrove. This project is just for documents within the purview of Town Clerk at Town Hall. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions about the document preservation item? About item number 5, one of the 2 cemetery preservation items, is there a question or comment on that one? Thank you.
Mr. Moderator, James Bailey, Housatonic. I just have a point of information, please, or a couple. Originally, when Massachusetts adopted the Community Preservation Act, what was the state match at that point? Yes.
Does anybody remember?
Not when the town adopted it, but when Massachusetts...
I understand. And does anybody have the answer to that? The original legislation? I don't know. Chris might have the answer.
Mr. Moderator, I don't recall, I don't know when it was adopted in the state. And Great Barrington adopted it in 2012, and the first several years we received a full match, or pretty close to a full match. I don't know what the states, I don't know what the states was. The most recent match we had was more in the line of 25%.
Okay.
So originally, the match was 100% originally from...
I believe that's right. Well, I'm not the person to ask.
We're currently at 25%. And there was a couple of years in the COVID years that we didn't receive any funding from the
I'd
state.
rather not have conversation back and forth. I'd rather
No, that's
have
a
all your questions and then comment.
Originally, the match was 100%, and what's happened over a period of time, over the last 14 years, more towns have adopted CPA, so the pie got split further. So it went from 100 and it went down and down, and this last year it's 25%. So if we have 100,000, they give us 25,000. That's the ramification of it.
So it's safe to say that in 14 years after adopting this, we've lost roughly 25% of the state's income? Matched income?
Please address the moderator, not
Mr.
someone in the
Moderator,
audience.
it's my understanding that since the adoption at roughly 52% or whatever it was in 2012, and we're now at 25%, we've lost 25% of the state's match. Is that correct?
You're doing the math?
I'm asking for an answer, please.
Go ahead if you like, but the colloquy is not really appropriate. One more time.
My understanding is that we didn't lose anything. It's always been a positive gain. You understand what I'm saying? What I'm saying is we've gotten less than we did at the beginning, but it's always more than we gave.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Point is made. Any other questions about this? After all, did begin talking about the cemetery item.
We're at the cemetery item
We're
now?
at number
So 5.
5.
Yes. I recommend a no vote for both number 5 and number 6. And the reason is that these are private monuments and so forth. And it seems like it's not a good precedent for us to take over things like the Brown Mausoleum because we couldn't find the descendants, and so $91,000 to do so is a lot.
May I
of
interrupt? Are you making a motion to delete item 5?
5 and 6. I mean,
Right now we're on 5.
okay, 5.
Is there a second to that motion? Second. Motion made and seconded. Continue.
Sure, thank you. I am concerned that town properties or properties that are not town-owned are moving into the town's tent, and that we become responsible more and more. We're trying to reduce our expenses, not expand our purview. And so it seems like for the Elmwood Cemetery, it would make more sense if there were a nonprofit that helped to protect some of these monuments, and that the CPA maybe would contribute to it. But for us to take over these private items goes against what the CPA was designed to do. Thank you.
Further discussion on the motion to drop item 5, to delete item 5.
Yes. Walter Atwood, Chairman of the Cemetery Commission. To speak on the Elmwood Cemetery first, we have a perpetual care fund. There's $272,000 in it. We're allowed to spend the interest. It was invested at .0097, which gave us about $1,700 a year. We've used that every time it came up. We tried to use it, but most of the things that we're looking to purchase with didn't go very far. And as far as the cemeteries are concerned, if you have a family stone in there, you can go to your insurance company and they can help you pay to get that refurbished or put back in place. The ones we're looking at the cemetery are families we cannot find who they are, or the families do not want to have them. Some are vandalism, some are poorly put in foundations that cause the stone to topple. And if we could do away with the fund, the perpetual care fund, we could most likely fund some of that. At the rate we're going, it'd most likely take us, another 25 years to stand the stones up. We have about 8 down in Green Lawn and Housatonic. We got 7 or 8 down in Elmwood, and then the Mahawi Cemetery, we have quite a bit there. The Mahawi Cemetery is a little bit different. The Mahawi Cemetery was originally, the front part was part of the Episcopal Church that first came to town in the 1760s. Or a little bit before, and then was taken over by a private organization, the Mahawi Cemetery thing, and Colonel Brown was the one that took it over. He happened to own a newspaper in New York City, and he ran it as a private cemetery for a number of years. And then in about the middle 50s, it went broke, and the town was forced to take it over. The Brown Mausoleum, we've looked for the relatives, and we cannot find any. The roof is going down. There's some other problems with it. There's 8 bodies inside it. If it's up to me, I would take it down and put the 8 bodies right there, but I've been told that's not a good idea. So we're asking for the money to repair it.
The motion right now is on item 5. Hold on a second. 2 people behind me who would like to speak on this motion. Okay. The motion is to remove item 5.
Charles Ferris, 5 Burning Tree Road. The reason I seconded is merely because I'd rather see on a procedural basis items 5 and 6 transferred to the Affordable Housing Trust, and that would be a slightly different motion procedurally, but if that's doable.
I think it would not be germane under this motion.
Okay, well,
Thank
I'm
you.
just explaining my thoughts.
Yep.
I think that would put 5
Under
or
this
6
warrant article, I mean.
more money for families to have
Okay.
deposits given to them to buy houses would, I think, be a better use of the funds.
I'll recognize people on the stage for efficiency. The issue is deleting line 5.
So, I am on the Cemetery Commission, Steve Bannon. These are historical monuments in a town cemetery. It is out of respect to those who are deceased to pick up these stones, and it's also safety. These stones weigh quite a bit, and when they fall, and I've seen them fall in the wintertime, I've seen them almost fall on top of a dog at one point. So it is somewhat dangerous. And on top of that, out of disrespect for those who helped found this town and come after us, I think it is our obligation to start to clean up the cemeteries. We've done Housatonic in the past, and I think we should continue to do some each year. Just my opinion.
Any further discussion on this motion to delete line 5? I realize the next one's related. Seeing none, all in favor, raise your cards. The motion is to delete line 5 from the main motion. It's an amendment to the motion. I'll ask again. The motion on the floor is to delete item 5 from the main motion. All those in favor of this amendment, please raise your cards. All those opposed, raise your cards. The motion fails. Line 6, which raises slightly different issues and has been sort of addressed, but not entirely.
Denise Forbes, 325 North Plain Road, Housatonic. I'm basically asking to make a motion to remove line 6, the Brown Mausoleum preservation. Take these funds.
Is there a second for that motion? Motion is made and seconded. Proceed.
I recommend that they take these funds and reallocate them to town-owned buildings that need repairs and help. And we need to take care of the living. I know the dead are gone, but they're gone. So we have people in Housatonic who need the Ramsdale Library renovated, and that needs a lot of work, but yet no one even brings that one up. So my concern is we need to take care of the living. Ramsdale Library is another historic property that needs help, and there's a lot of town buildings in town that need help, and that's where I'm coming from. We need to take care of the living. Thank you.
Further discussion on the motion to eliminate line 6.
Walter Atwood, Chair.
You've already covered half of it, but I'll give you 2 minutes.
Walter Atwood, Chairman Town Committee for the cemeteries, the Brown Mausoleum. We've already repaired the Weatherby line, which is a little bit down to the right. You go in the circle, head down the hills on the right. There's the Weatherbys. Him and his daughter are in there. It costs us about $30,000 to redo that. We have a precedence of doing this. We technically own the Brown Mausoleum as soon as we finish. Thank you.
Sharon Gregory. $91,000 is a lot of money, and Great Barrington is one of the 2 largest towns in all of Berkshire County with about 40 acres. And we have a lot of cemeteries. We have a lot of things to take care of. The $91,000 says That's 50% more than even getting our lifeguards for our living children and swimmers. Where does it stop? Do we just keep spending because things break and we put it under the tent of the town? I'm really concerned that we're not doing any belt tightening, we're doing belt widening. Thank you.
Thank you. Behind me, Steve, one more time.
And I appreciate the spending issue. Brown Mausoleum is actually a beautiful building and part of the history of Great Barrington. And if we are not going to spend money on our history, are we going to let those just deteriorate is the question. I think it's important to know the way this process works is both the town and private individuals apply, and these are the projects that made it through 2 steps, and there were 8 and then 9 members on this committee. 8 approved this, or the majority did, and it seemed to be a worthwhile project. If you're going to take those down, you're going to change the history of this town.
I don't think so.
Denise, I'll give you 1 minute for rebuttal.
Okay, my issue is $91,000 is a lot of money. If the roof, based on the pictures and the report, I read it, $91,000 is an overcharge. That's a lot of money. My roof in my house didn't even cost $91,000. So for a small mausoleum, that's a lot of money to be spent. Plus the Ramsdale Library is a historic property, but yet it keeps getting pushed to the side and no one cares about it. And it's one of those things where that is used by people every day, living people. We have to take care of our living children who run around in Housatonic that need attention. You're getting them their Housatonic playground improvement. They need a library also. And this is something that's very important and dear to all of our hearts who live in Housatonic. So please think about Ramsdale Library, please. Thank you.
If there is no further comment on this amendment, there apparently is.
Lou Muscatello, 20 Copper Beach Lane. $91,000 is a lot of money, but compared to what? If the monument continues to deteriorate, the cost of eventually taking it down, burying the bodies inside, what would be the cost of that going forward for comparison? It's a question.
Thank you. Seeing no further discussion on the amendment to eliminate line 6, I need to be sure. All those in favor of eliminating line 6, please raise your cards. Thank you. Put them down. All those opposed to eliminating line 6, motion fails at, the amendment fails at 6:36. Questions or discussion or changes on line item 7 in this warrant article, the Old Maids study? Seeing none, are there questions or comments on item 8 in the motion, which is the Housatonic playground equipment? Seeing none, I'll call for a motion now, a vote now on the full motion. All those in favor, please raise your cards. Thank you. All those opposed, please raise your cards. Motion passes at 6:37. Article 23, is there a motion?
Article 23, accept MGL C59, Section 5, Clause 37A, increased tax exemption. To see if the town will vote to accept the provisions of Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 59, Section 5, Clause 37A, to increase the allowable property tax exemption for blind persons from $437.50 to $500. Clause 5, 37A, to increase allowable property exemption for blind persons, like I said, $437.50 to $500 of the actual tax due, or take any action relative thereto.
I don't think you really meant to include that last bit in the motion, did you? I think the motion stopped with taxes due. Okay. Motion has been made and seconded. Is there an explanation?
Do you want the explanation read, please? This article increases the exemption amount that was based on the provisions of Clause 37 of Section 5 regarding exemption for residents who are legally blind. Clause 37 is a generally available exemption not requiring local acceptance. Approval of this article will raise the exemption amount from $437.50 to $500, providing additional financial relief to eligible residents within the state authorized limit. Once Clause 37A is accepted, Clause 37 will no longer be applicable to the town. A yes or aye vote in favor of the motion increases the property tax exemption for legally blind residents to the maximum amount allowed by state law, providing additional financial relief. A no or nay vote opposed to the motion retains the current lower exemption amount and does not adopt the increased benefit available under state law.
Are there any questions about this motion? Seeing none, all in favor raise your cards. Thank you. All opposed? Motion carries at 6:40. Article 24, is there a motion from the...
Yes, Article 24. I move that the town will vote to accept designation as a seasonal community pursuant to Section 32B of Chapter 23B of the General Laws and applicable regulations of the Executive Office of Housing and Livable Communities. Explanation. This article allows the town to formally accept the designation as a seasonal community under the Commonwealth.
Would you pardon me just a second? Chris, the motion is not up yet. Okay, that's the motion. Is there a second? Second. Motion has been made and seconded. Proceed.
Sorry. This article allows the town to formally accept the designation as a seasonal community under the Commonwealth's Affordable Homes Act. The designation recognizes communities that experience significant seasonal fluctuations in population, housing demand, and workforce needs, and provides access to tools and resources to help address those challenges. Acceptance of the designation does not immediately change zoning or local regulations. The town has up to 24 months from acceptance of the designation to adopt any required zoning amendments to remain in compliance. If the designation is accepted, draft zoning amendments would be developed and brought forward to a future town meeting for consideration. If the town ultimately chooses not to adopt the required zoning changes, the designation may be revoked without financial penalty. Overall, this article provides the town with the opportunity to access additional tools and resources while maintaining local control over future implementation. A yes or aye vote in favor of the motion accepts seasonal community designation, providing access to state tools and resources to address housing and workforce challenges while maintaining local control over future zoning decisions. A no or nay vote opposed to the notion does not accept the designation, limiting access to associated resources, and foregoes the opportunity to explore additional housing tools under the program.
Are there questions or debate or suggestions about this motion?
Trevor Forbes, 325 North Plain Road. We seem to be missing some information from all of this. I would like to know how much of our population is actually seasonal in terms of a definition, and I'd like that compared to some of our near neighbors like Lennox, for example. That is a question, and I'd like an answer.
Do you have any more questions?
I'd
rather not have a conversation back and forth.
No, but I will have a follow-up on that because I have a feeling that actually our level of seasonal population is actually quite low compared to a lot of the other communities that you're citing there. I'd like to know the numbers. Thank you.
Does anyone have it? By the way, what do you mean by seasonal population?
I'm sorry, Mr. Moderator, but that is the definition that's been used up there. I want to know what the seasonal population is. I assume that a seasonal community has a definition. What I'm asking for is what is that definition and how do we measure up to that definition?
Okay.
Thank you.
Would someone, Chris or someone like to explain the background of this?
Through you, Mr. Moderator. Just a second. Through you, Mr. Moderator. The seasonal community is actually just a term that is used through the Affordable Housing Act that was passed by the Governor Healy in 2024. And most of the towns on the Cape and Islands were the first, and Great Barrington and the Berkshires and Franklin County also were incorporated. Great Barrington actually was included back in December. The town received notification that we were eligible to adopt what they call a seasonal community and designation. And the Affordable Homes Act provides designated communities with important tools, including year-round occupancy restrictions, local or regional obtainable housing trust funds, fair housing compliant preferences for essential employees and artists, expanded residential exemption authorities, and zoning requirements for undersized lots and tiny homes. So it is a process or an opportunity. I do not know what our seasonal base is compared to other towns, but that's not, the state is the one who gives us that designation.
If I can apply just a little information, I believe the statute also includes some criteria that a community is to meet in order to be considered seasonal. And those might help answer Trevor's question.
Yes. I have to find that in my notes, so I apologize. So I believe it's the overall housing authority inventory of 3.25, a percentage of housing stock that is used for seasonal, occasional, or recreational use that is not used as a primary residence by the property owner over 12.5% as determined by the Executive Office of Housing Livable Communities.
Mr. Moderator.
Rembold, perhaps you can elucidate a bit.
Great Barrington was designated specially back in November and December. Percent of seasonal units is 12.71%. Percent of short-term rentals is 7.60%. Yes, some communities, particularly on the Cape, are much, much higher. Point of fact, Great Barrington is eligible as designated by the state.
Okay. Continue.
Mr. Moderator, James Bailey, Housatonic. There's some information that needs to definitely be heard tonight. First of all, the Massachusetts Municipal Association is opposed to many aspects of this. Right off the bat, that should be alarming. The state mandates means we have to adopt zoning changes to the state standards. It adopts by right development. By right should be alarming, very alarming, as it takes away one individual's right and gives rights to others. The administrative strain on this town would be probably a lot more than anybody will admit. And if I'd like to ask a question, Mr. Moderator?
Go ahead, we'll see if we can get an answer, but it'll count against your time. Go ahead.
Does the town administrator see the addition of any staff associated with the adoption of this?
Will there be any staff consequences?
This is for zoning changes. So this would allow for zoning, not for additional staffing of monitoring or any type of regulatory process. No, I do not see additional staffing as far as Great Barrington is concerned.
Okay.
No.
Thank you. So back to my 3 minutes here. Portions of this are extremely restrictive. If you've read any of this, it's extremely restrictive. As anybody who's followed affordable housing lately, it seems to be extremely restrictive to specific individuals. Now my little spiel here. We can't allow the character of our community to be determined by the state of Massachusetts. Just to allow the state of Massachusetts to decide what we're going to have here is, in my opinion, ridiculous. We must leave zoning in local control. I would like to have a say. I'm sure the select board, as frustrating as it can be, it's nice to have them have somebody's back. A no vote doesn't mean that we're opposed to affordable housing by any means at all. It means we just want to control development within our community. We don't want to change the unique character of our community by following state guidelines. As I pointed out earlier, the state regulations change at the state's will, whether it be money coming to us, whether it be pot regulations, it changes at will. We can't trust the state, period. We can't allow them further control of our community. And if we have any trust in our affordable housing trust, you've witnessed and you've seen and you can still believe that they have the tools already to create housing. In the last 6 years, 8 years, we've created Windrush, Bentley Avenue, workforce housing, 20 homes in Housatonic. Thank you, Mr. Moderator.
Thank you.
Thank you for reminding me.
A clarification before we continue?
Yes, so this designation is very different, and I believe that the former speaker was talking about actually and he can correct me if I'm wrong, but the MBTA regulations and zoning regulations, which are actually mandated. This is not a mandated a designation. So the state is actually allowing Great Barrington to decide, do you want to be designated as a seasonal community? If that designation is accepted here tonight, what that allows you to do is to allow new and broader zoning for workforce housing, such for essential workers like police, fire. There's very specific occupations that then will qualify for allowing a bigger opportunity for housing development. So you can have healthcare workers have a tiny home and they're eligible for that. It doesn't actually restrict, it actually broadens out our opportunities. Now the state actually is giving the towns the opportunity to design what that looks like. It's not telling us what we have to do. MBTA communities is very restrictive. It tells them exactly what it is, and that is not relevant to this actual designation. Thank you.
Continue. Next.
Eve Schatz, 4 Pleasant Court. For me to understand this motion, I need an explanation of line 6 in paragraph explanation that references required zoning amendments. What are those? What are examples of required zoning amendments?
Which are the required zoning amendments that we would need to adopt in order to continue being designated a seasonal community?
What are they
Correct?
specifically? Because then I can judge how it affects our
They're in the statute, I
community.
believe, and I think Chris or would Chris like to explain it?
Hi, folks. Just to be clear, you are not voting on zoning tonight. If you accept this, we can discuss zoning this time next year, and you can decide whether that zoning looks good for you. If you accept this, the planning board will work on zoning to do the following things which would be required.
The question is which, okay, go ahead. Yep.
One would be to allow development of undersized lots in residential areas, and to allow tiny houses to be developed as year-round housing units. Those are the key things. In some ways, our zoning already complies with these things. The planning board will work on this with the assistance of Berkshire Regional Planning Commission over the next year, and present to you what that can look like for Great Barrington. And you can decide then. If you don't like it, then this goes away.
Okay. Does that answer your question?
I'm not sure, because I understand that Great Barrington can be commended for their workforce affordable housing efforts. We're really a leader in that particular area relative to other towns in Berkshire County. We've done an excellent job. And we do already have ADU allowances here in Great Barrington, thank goodness we do. What I'm still unclear about are the required zoning amendments, and what are they? Are they to solidify?
I believe Chris just said what they were, given that we're not dealing with the text of zoning amendments tonight, because I don't think the state statute prescribes the text, does it?
It doesn't describe. Is it to codify the ADU allowance?
The state says seasonal communities must, within 24 months of, let's say, tonight, adopt zoning that permits undersized lots in residential areas to be developed, particularly as attainable housing units, meaning they're affordable to the workforce, particularly the essential workers, as the town manager mentioned. So that's number one, allowing development of undersized lots. Number two is allowing tiny houses as year-round housing units.
Those are three subjects that must be addressed. Eve, I'll give you another couple minutes to elaborate if you still have. I'd like us to know what your questions are, but I'm not sure that there's going to be answers.
I thought we already have that in place.
Yes.
So I'm unclear about the benefit of this motion if we already have it in place. Is there
Mr.
some
Moderator.
other benefit?
Yep, Mr. Moderator. Mr. Moderator.
But hold on just a second. Do you have any other questions, rhetorical or otherwise? Because I believe that's already been answered, but I'll have it answered again.
Sure. So I'll answer the question. The benefit is actually, once you have the designation, we actually, as the assistant town manager said, we have a lot of the zoning already in place. Once you have the designation, the town is actually going to be eligible for additional grant funds through the state.
Okay.
So right now, there is up to $2 million available only for the communities that have the designation. And then, in addition to that, Great Barrington will be eligible to have a seat on the advisory council in Boston, actually helping out with getting more funds to the community. But unless you have that designation, we don't have a seat at the table and we don't have access to those funds. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Charlie?
Charles Ferris, 5 Burning Tree Road. I think that's good that you've finally pointed out the benefits of participating in the program. And I generally favor it, and I'm just standing here because there is a time bomb or two in there that could, if fully adopted by the board, they would have to elect to do so, could actually harm the town, in my opinion, because one of the things that the Seasonal Community Act does is allow you to raise the real estate tax exemption from 35% to 50%, which would be a dramatic and horrendous result for tax rates in the town. I'm going to speak briefly to that when we get to the real estate tax exemption. But so I'm hoping, even though I have definitely support the adoption, that if and when it's adopted, the board will tread cautiously and only use those portions of the act which will benefit the town. Thank you.
Thank you.
Jim Stark, 1099 Main Street. Mr. Ferris spoke about my concern, which is the 50% residential tax exemption, which is available to communities that adopt the seasonal communities designation. The last or second to last article tonight asks the town to implement the tax exempt however you say it, at the highest legal rate or the highest allowable rate, which would be 50% if this passes. So I think that's rather alarming.
Thank you. They will know, the moderator in question will let them know what that one does when that comes up.
Rail Matsuzaki 10 Lakeview Road. This has already been mentioned, but I just want to make sure to reiterate or to confirm this fact that currently when affordable housing is made, it can go to basically anybody that applies, and then it's based on certain things. But you can't basically try to direct that affordable housing to particular individuals. But with this, we can direct it to people like police officers, teachers, and such that work in this town. I think part of the problem is that we create affordable housing, but then this affordable housing is not being occupied by the very people in this town that need affordable housing, so they can work as teachers, as clerks, and such. So what this act allows us to do is do that. Right now, we can't do that by law. You cannot create affordable housing and prioritize people in this town to live in those affordable housing. This act allows us to do this. So I think that alone is worthwhile. And as for the other zoning things, it's already been mentioned, this allows for tiny homes, smaller lots. All those things are good things, and this act allows that to do, but that's already we have in line. It's not like that's something we have to change. And finally, I think it's worth iterating that there is a pot of money that this opens up, that we can now apply to funds, state funds, to help create affordable housing, and now we'll have access to that if we accept this designation. So I only see benefits to accepting this designation, so I urge fellow voters to vote yes for this.
Thank you.
Ananda Timpain, 139 Seekonk Crossroad. I'm also the co-chair of the Affordable Housing Trust. And I wanted to make a couple of clarifications and re-emphasize that both our current zoning laws are, to my understanding, aligned with the new laws that will be required, and any changes will require a vote of this body. Similarly, with the opening up of the tax exemption rate, that also requires a vote of this body. So while a seasonal designation may allow it to be up to 50%, we don't have to allow it up to be 50%. And then lastly, on the point the previous speaker was making about essential workers, while our affordable housing is meeting the needs of members of our community, including workers, we don't have the ability to prioritize essential workers because of how housing law works. This would allow us to build housing that is specifically prioritizing the needs of essential workers like firefighters or police officers. So these are some of the important benefits and controls we have still within this designation.
Thank you.
Bob Raddick, 8 Blue Hill Lane. This just picks up on a couple of prior comments that I wanted to get some clarification. By voting affirmatively for Article 24, seasonal communities, that essentially, if I put it this way, opens the door to also adopting potential what's in Article 29 and 30. So in other words, if Article 24 is not approved, then the opportunity for Article 29 and 30 is not available. Is that correct? Is that a contingency there?
Through you, Mr.
I
Moderator.
could answer the question, but I prefer somebody else to answer the question.
Yes, so the residential tax exemption that is identified in Article 29 and 30, the town already has that opportunity. Every town in the Commonwealth has that opportunity up to 35%. The seasonal communities actually increases that percentage to be considered up to 50%. However, point of correction, the residential tax exemption approval is with the select board, not with the town meeting body to approve, but it is on an annual basis, and the select board do not have to approve even 0 or 1%. They have not approved it at all. It's been at 0% steady. So, but this is for, it's for other communities. It's not just, the act is for a broader range, not just in the Berkshires. So it gives opportunity for communities that actually do have a very large seasonal base that they can then increase the residential tax exemption. So I hope that clarifies it for you.
That certainly helps, thank you. So my takeaway is that the seasonal community's affirmative vote, should it be that, does not have bearing one way or another on the residential exemption, because that decision is made by the select board. However, there is a citizen petition here which has a different matter. Okay, am I correct in that?
Yes, I'm sorry, Mr. Moderator, through you. Yes, the Article 29 is an advisory to the select board vote for
Thank
tonight.
you.
Vivian Orlowski, Lakeview Road, Great Barrington. I just had a question to follow up on Nanda's comments in favor of this article. She mentioned essential workers as police and fire. My question for the town manager, whoever else could answer, is, are paramedics and emergency medical technicians, EMTs, considered essential workers?
I believe there is an answer to that question, whether this legislation, how far it embraces the essential workers who are covered. Chris, do you have the answer?
Yes,
We
Mr.
have it here.
Moderator.
Yes.
Yes. So the housing preference for essential workers and housing for artists, and I'm going to read this from the actual committee. Communities may adopt fair housing compliant preferences for local essential public employees, such as teachers, first responders, so that's police, fire, EMT, and public works staff. They may also support housing for artists if there and when there is a demonstrated local need. Oh, that answers your question. Thank you.
Does that answer your question?
Yes, it does, thank you. Just one comment for people to keep in mind as we move along these warrant items, that we are designated on the kind of second tier as a seasonal community because we have 12.5% of people who are not full-time residents. So that's something to keep in mind as we move along to the last warrant items tonight. Thank you.
Fred Clark, 388 Park Street North. I am the other co-chair of the Affordable Housing Trust, and I just wanted to add one point regarding essential workers and housing for essential workers. One of the things that this adoption of seasonal communities does is allow a greater headroom for the percentage of AMI. I see some people shaking their heads when they talk about affordable housing for essential workers, because some people have in the past bumped up against the current AMI restrictions based on the funding sources that are
AMI, some people meant to know AMI.
The area median income, which is 50% of the population makes more money, 50% makes a salary or income lower than that. One of the benefits is that this expands the headroom, if you will, for the salaries or incomes, so that you don't have to bump up against that salary limit that we have in the past. I think that while there have not been any discussions that, to my knowledge, this is an article that could help us to develop, for instance, the Simon's Rock property. It gives us new tools to use that we can apply. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further comment on the designation of Great Barrington as a seasonal community? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion, please raise your cards. Thank you. All opposed, please raise your cards. Motion passes at 7:08. Article 25, is there a motion?
I move the town vote to authorize the select board to acquire certain temporary easements through all legal means, including donation, purchase, and eminent domain, in order to install a new culvert under Brush Hill Road and restore the adjacent stream banks. The land areas of said easements being described as approximate impact area on a plan entitled Culvert Replacement for Great Barrington Brush Hill Road over Brookside Pond Trib by Gill Engineering, undated, a copy of which is on file with the town clerk, to appropriate $1,000 from state-issued Chapter 90 funds for such acquisition and expenses related thereto, and to authorize the select board to take all actions and execute all documents necessary in connection therewith.
Is there a second? Is there an explanation? By the way, this being a real estate kind of thing, it requires a 2/3 majority, which you have authorized me to call when it comes up. Explanation?
Yep, I'm coming.
Okay.
As part of a project to replace an undersized culvert on Brush Hill Road with a new 3-sided box culvert meeting road streamed crossing requirements, the project must also alter and then restore portions of the stream bed and stream banks for a short distance upstream and downstream of the culvert, portions of which are on private property. Easements are required in order to work on private property. A yes or aye vote in favor of the motion authorizes the town to acquire temporary easements necessary to complete the culvert replacement project, improving roadway safety, drainage, and environmental conditions. A no or nay vote opposed to the motion does not authorize the acquisition of easements, which could delay or prevent completion of the culvert project and associated infrastructure improvements.
Questions about the easement for the culvert? Seeing none, all in favor, raise your cards. Thank you. All opposed? Passes by 2/3 at 7:10. Article 26, is there a motion? I see there's not a motion from the appointed individual tonight, who is, I think, required to be home watching baby.
I'm filling in as best as possible. I move that the town vote to authorize the filing of a petition with the general court for special legislation to amend Chapter 26 of the Acts of 2018 or any other applicable law and or separate authorizing legislation to allow a resident of the town of Sheffield to serve as an appointed member of the Great Barrington Housing Authority Board, and to authorize the select board and town manager to take all actions necessary to secure approval of such legislation.
Motion made and seconded about designating this post. Is there an explanation?
Yes, sir, thank you. This article authorizes the town to seek special legislation to allow a resident of Sheffield to serve on the Great Barrington Housing Authority Board. Current state law generally requires that Housing Authority board members be residents of the municipality they serve. However, the Housing Authority oversees properties located in both Great Barrington and Sheffield, including tenant populations in each community. The proposed legislation would provide flexibility to appoint up to one Sheffield resident to the board, expanding the pool of potential members and allowing for representation from a community where housing units are located. This article does not itself make the appointment, but instead authorizes the town to request that the state legislature enact the necessary change in the law. A yes or aye vote in favor of the motion authorizes the town to seek special legislation to expand eligibility for Housing Authority board membership, allowing for broader representation and flexibility. A no or nay vote opposed to the motion does not authorize the request for special legislation, maintaining the current requirement that board members be residents of the town.
Other questions about this? There are. Yes.
Karen Smith, 5 Monument Valley Road. Mr. Mercer's in the back. We served on the Housing Trust Board a while ago. This has been something that has been going on for years. There's a whole group of people in Sheffield that are part of the Great Barrington Housing Trust, but they have no voice. And seeing that this is the 250th year of the United States of America, the whole no representation at all. It has been a moot point for years why it's taken this long. I think we started this like 7 or 8 years ago, so see it come, right, Michelle? Yeah, this has been something, this is a no-brainer. Thank you.
Anybody willing to challenge that this is a no-brainer?
Michael?
Apparently not.
Michael?
If we have, Phil will, yes.
Yes, just a brief comment. I'm also serve as the chair of the Housing Authority Board. Just an important point is that there is no specific person who has stepped forward to seek this position from the town of Sheffield. So this change, as Karen pointed out, is just changing the plumbing essentially to allow for the opportunity for a person from Sheffield to serve and represent their community in the Housing Authority.
Seeing no further desire to speak, all those in favor of the motion, raise your cards. Thank you. All those opposed? Motion carries at 7:14. The next item is Article 28. We dealt with Article 27 on Saturday. Is there a motion?
I move that the town vote to appropriate and transfer the free cash $118,014.16 for the purpose of reimbursement to Great Barrington Retail, Inc., FKA Coastal Cultivators, LLC, for certain payments made to the town as community impact fees pursuant to the host community agreement for the retail marijuana establishment.
Is there a second? Second. Motion made and seconded. Is there an explanation?
This article authorizes the use of $118,014.16 from free cash in FY27 to reimburse Great Barrington Retail Incorporated, formerly Coastal Cultivators LLC, for certain payments made to the town as host community agreement impact fees. Great Barrington Retail did not bring litigation claim regarding the community impact fees it had paid under its HCA. However, it notified the town that it would make the same types of claim in light of the settlement of the claims, that it did not go to litigation. This reimbursement is consistent with the town's legal state settlement with those other cannabis establishments that did file litigation related to the HCA impact fees. The requested appropriation will also come from free cash and is for this a portion of the funds the town had already received from the establishment. As with the appropriation for the establishment that made litigation claim, the payment amount will not be added to the tax rate. A yes or a yay vote in favor of the motion authorizes reimbursement consistent with prior settlements using funds already received, ensuring equitable treatment and avoiding potential future litigation without impacting the tax rate. A no or a nay vote opposed to the motion does not authorize the reimbursement, which would expose the town to potential legal claims and require future action to resolve the matter.
Are there questions and comments on the motion for Article 28?
Denise Forbes, 325 North Plain Road. Unlike Article 25, which is court-ordered, this is not a court-ordered one, although
You mean
they
27?
threaten- 27, I'm sorry. They threaten to sue if they know that the other people are getting their money if we don't pay them. But why should we? We never had an impact study done. We don't know what the real impact is. This money could be used for some of the services that would be required if there is an impact, which I'm sure there is. As we found out on Saturday, one of the women was telling us, who worked at the Railroad Street Youth Project, there was a lot of impact with the marijuana with the young kids. So I would vote no on this article because I really think we should leave it and leave it in free cash. We're in a position where our budget is really struggling. We have a lot of issues with cash, and we need it. So why give it away? Anyway.
Billy, a response from the Select Board? Yes.
I would just say this, what we are doing is being proactive And I would imagine we would be spending tens of thousands of dollars on legal fees. We're just saying, let's treat them as we've treated everyone else. This money has nothing to do with the tax rate. This is segregated free cash money. And it would have to be proved that this establishment caused any problem, which we've yet to be able to prove that a single establishment has caused a problem.
Peter.
Peter Robertson, 1084 Main Street, Housatonic. I just have a question for clarification in light of the give back to the marijuana establishments. What are the HCAs now? Were those completely done away with? And are there no HCA agreements? And also in relation to something that was said on Saturday, that some of those HCA funds were already used to like fund a teacher at the high school. Now, are those things that were funded, are those no longer being funded because of this payback? It's unclear. How does that work?
You have two questions. What's the current status of HCAs, and what happens to things HCAs paid for in the past?
Correct.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Fine. Answers.
So first of all, each award that was given out under the HCA was for 1 year. And none of that money, which this wasn't asked, was paid back. The town was allowed to keep using that money and not have to borrow to pay it back. So those were 1 year. So obviously, if it was used for a teacher, we are no longer funding that because we're not allowed to under the law. The other question was,
current status of HCA agreements.
HCAs now are formatted by the state, by the CCC, and we are using HCAs that are under state guidelines.
Any other questions about Article 28? Seeing none, all of those in favor of the motion, please raise your cards. Please put them down. All those opposed? Motion carries at 7:20. And at this point, there will be a change in the cast as Ray Murray comes up here to handle Articles 29 and 30. It's going to take a moment for me to get out of your way. Do you have any way to keep track of time? Okay. I'd make that a separate, I call for a vote on that if the majority wants a secret ballot. That's what I do it, but I just want. Okay. That's the way I do it, but you get to do it your way.
No, that's the right way.
Let me get
I don't think I need this.
out of your way.
Good evening. Let's pull this down. Michael's a little taller than I am. I need a milk crate to stand on up here. My name is Ray Murray. I have moderated articles at past town meetings, but not for quite a while. Here's how we're going to handle Article 29 and 30. The person making the motion and providing the information supporting Article 29 has been granted 6 minutes for their presentation. I also had, by request, I granted the opponents of proposition or Article 29 6 minutes to respond. Following those two presentations, we will go in order, and any comments pro or con will be made at that point. So I'd now like to call forward the person that is going to be making, offering Article 29.
Bill Meyer, 11 George Street.
Go ahead.
Okay.
Make your motion.
I have to raise my microphone a little bit here.
Here, you can have mine.
So I'd like to make a motion for, I'd like to make a motion to see if the town will vote to adopt an advisory resolution expressing the sense of town meeting that the select board should vote.
You're reading the warrant. Read the motion. Which you write here.
It's on the screen. Okay, voted that the Select Board should implement the residential exemption provided by Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 59, Section 5C, at its next annual tax classification hearing.
The motion has been made and second. We'll have the two comments at the beginning, and then we'll go to resident comments. Go ahead, Mr. Meyer. What's that? Is there an explanation for the change? Was that dropped?
It's up to you to rule whether it is within the scope. I believe you're going to explain why we're going for 20% rather than 35 or 50.
I believe it is in the scope to drop that.
Okay.
You may go ahead with your presentation.
Okay, great. I know many people in this room from my volunteer work on the Master Plan Committee, the School Building Committee, Lake Mansfield Alliance, and the Parks Commission. I still work at the Kilpatrick Athletic Center at what used to be Simon's Rock. I think I'm one of the last Great Barrington residents to work there. I am here today as a proponent of the residential tax exemption. As full disclosure, if passed, I will probably pay more in taxes. I am not a proponent so I can save money. I am a proponent so we can stabilize and strengthen our community. Change is hard, but our town's finances are changing in dramatic ways because the challenges we face as a community, the new high school, our bridges, the Housatonic water situation, and the Ramsdale Library all contribute to potentially dramatic increases in our already high tax burden. When discussions began about the new high school, I really felt strongly that we needed to do something to address this added burden that was on the horizon. That's when I was introduced to the state-authorized residential tax exemption. The Select Board plays a major role in this process, and the state gives them a great deal of latitude in using the RTE. The Select Board makes decisions on town taxes at the tax classification hearing that usually happens in the early fall. Today's vote is advisory. The Select Board makes the final decision in late summer or early fall. If adopted, the Select Board decides the size of the exemption. This percentage of average property value can be changed each year. The Select Board can decide to stop using the exemption at the beginning of the next year if they want. It's all up to them. For this example, we are using 20% because it is in the middle of the values. The motion leaves the choice up to the Select Board. The Select Board can change values depending on the town's tax situation in any given year. So to put it another way, if your house is worth $400,000 assessed value, and the exemption is $100,000, then you're going to pay $300,000 on the assessed value. Remember, assessed value is what you pay taxes on. This is determined by the town's assessor, Emily Schilling. It is not the amount you think you could get if you tried to sell your house on the open market. The RTE is just one tool that's available to towns as they try to adjust the tax code to benefit the people who contribute the most to the character of our town. This includes seniors on fixed incomes who can already benefit from several programs under state law and who the Select Board can help with an even more impactful subsidy if they decide. To help renters, the town could take steps to include full-time renters in the RTE. It is a fairly easy process. This was done by Provincetown, and the result has been a stabilized rental market. I've heard people ask, why have only 16 towns in the Commonwealth adopted the RTE? The answer is actually quite simple to me. Until recently, there have been very few towns or cities with a combination of resources and demand for homes to make the RTE an attractive option. Our town is a unique gem with hiking, swimming, cultural events, restaurants, shopping, all within walking distance and surrounded by incredible natural beauty. People looking to buy a second home are looking at what makes Great Barrington special. Few of these people will be dissuaded by a tax rate that incorporates the RTE. First, let's consider that 15% of our housing stock is owned by second homeowners. Our full-time resident population is large enough so that our schools have kids, our businesses have local employees, and our neighborhoods are populated with people who you see all the time. 15% is a healthy number for a community like ours. We want to keep it at that. Some will say that the RTE will kill the vacation home market. I would like to refer to the previous slide and say, we're worth it. Second, even people who are not here all the time still need the roads to be smooth, the ambulance to show up in an emergency, the store to have clerks, the beach to have lifeguards, and the restaurants to have waiters. When I hear complaints about the cost of educating our children, I point out that many of our clerks, our lifeguards, and wait staff are Monument High students. Second homeowners are part of our community. They are often an integral part of our social groups. But to keep Great Barrington functioning as a sustainable and vital community, we need to ask them, is it worth it to you to help us to maintain the character of this community? Nobody likes change, but realistically, change is at our doorstep. The bills are coming due. I mean, this meeting has been all about that. Additional expenses are piling up, and the fiscal picture for the next few years does not inspire optimism. If we do not adopt the RTE, taxes will go up at a rate that will be unsustainable for our most vulnerable citizens. Slowly but surely, people will have to sell their houses because of the added burden.
You're going to need to move it along here now.
I'm almost done.
Good.
We will see neighbors leave and houses empty for part of the year. We will see businesses fail because they cannot find employees, and services diminished because there is no one to provide them. You might hear some people say that with RTE, the sky will fall. No one will buy vacation homes, and it will be the beginning of the end for our economy. These people once predicted that the same thing was going to happen to downtown Great Barrington when Main Street was redone. Take that into consideration. With the residential tax exemption, nearly all resident homeowners will see a decrease in their taxes. The burden of taking care of all the projects we have on the horizon will be spread more evenly and fairly over all our residents, both full-time and part-time. Our community will become more stable with a diverse population that will enhance every citizen's experience living in this town. We will stabilize the most important part of our town, the community that supports it. Thank you.
I now recognize Mr. Chip Illitzer, who requested permission as a non-resident to speak on behalf of the opponents of Article 29.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I'm now a part-time person, but I've been here since 1995, and all of my children went through the school district. My heart's still here. I still consider myself, this is my home. But I am not a voter anymore. I would like to say that the RTE is well-intentioned, but it is bad public policy that within a few years would raise everyone's taxes. Let me explain. Because the RTE is revenue neutral, any taxes saved by some residential taxpayers must be made up by raising the overall residential tax rate. Where the RTE has worked well are in 11 true seasonal communities on Martha's Vineyard, Nantucket, and the Cape, where very expensive second homes constitute 80 to 90% of the total residential property value. So in those areas, you don't have to raise tax rates very much to pay for significant savings for the few people who are actually full-time residents. In fact, those 11 towns all have tax rates under $8 per $1,000 of assessed valuation. compared to Great Barrington's current rate of $13.24. In contrast, only about 16%, or 15%, as the prior speaker said, of Great Barrington residential properties are second homes. And perhaps another 10% are owned by full-time residents who would get whacked because their homes have become too valuable regardless of their income. Think of people who've been here for decades and their homes were once inexpensive and their kids are grown and they're on fixed income. When 84% of taxpayers can qualify for the RTE rather than just 10 or 20% like on the Cape, the tax rate has to increase by a lot. How much? I asked Michael Wise back in February if he had calculated how much based on a full 50% RTE, which is the maximum that would be allowed now that we voted to have a seasonal community designation. His answer, based on fiscal 2024 numbers, is a tax rate of $21.47, which is 55% higher than the actual rate of $13.89 that year. Let me put that in perspective. $21.47 is higher than any of the 351 cities and towns in Massachusetts. Now, I'm anticipating that Michael will protest that he's only proposing a 20% RTE rather than a 50% RTE. The Warren article, until changed, had said at the highest percentage allowed by law, and now I think you can understand why the proponents deleted that particular phrase. However, even at 20%, Great Barrington's RTE adjusted tax rate would place it within the state's 25 highest tax cities and towns. I suggest that such a rate increase would have a seriously negative effect on high-end property values and begin a death spiral of ever higher rates to sustain the town's revenues. And that is before granting landlords access to the residential exemption to protect their tenants from rent hikes caused by the higher tax rate. That would push the necessary rate even higher. And about 1/3 of all households in Great Barrington are renters, not owners. I've said before that the RTE is too blunt an instrument to achieve its objective, like using a machete to perform brain surgery. That is true, but the real problem with the RTE is that it tries to treat the symptom of taxpayer pain without addressing the root cause of our high tax disease, which is that 77% of our property taxes this year have gone to pay the school district assessment due to a flawed allocation formula for the 3 towns that has us in Great Barrington overpaying the district by $7.1 million. Each student attending Berkshire Hills will cost taxpayers just about $40,000 apiece next school year. Second homeowners and long-term residents do not have students in our schools, yet the RTE would penalize them. Some will sell their homes under the extra tax pressure. They will tend to be replaced by younger full-time residents, including some with children. Therefore, the RTE would hit our taxpayers—
You'll need to move it along, Chip.
Will hit our taxpayers with a double whammy, almost at the end. 1, higher future assessments from the school district, and 2, discouraging growth in the tax base from new second home construction. The bottom line is that the RTE proposal is well-intentioned but completely counterproductive. It would spike tax rates, foster community disharmony, and distract us from working together to accomplish real tax relief by getting the state legislature to change the regional school district allocation formula statewide. Senator Paul Mark and Representative Lee Davis are co-sponsors of a bill currently in the Ways and Means Committee that would be the first step in the process of making Great Barrington affordable again, and it deserves our support. For those who are legislative geeks, the bill is S-400, an act to ensure adequate and equitable funding for public education. If you'd like to learn more, and particularly how you can help, email me directly at chip.elitzer@gmail.com. Thank you very much.
Okay. Our first speaker. Third speaker, but
Yeah.
first after the motions.
Jonathan Hankin, 43 West Plain Road. I'm completing my 29th year on the planning board, and I'm crazy enough to be running for re-election. I'd appreciate your vote.
We're back on the 3-minute rule. I'm not pointing out just you, but for everyone.
I'll take care of it.
Thank you.
However well-intentioned this article is, it's a bad fit for Great Barrington. Communities that have adopted it tend to have a minimum of 50% second homeowners. Our number is 8 to 12%, depending upon where you get your data. Included in that number of properties being considered second homes are, in fact, dedicated investment properties for short and long-term rentals. While I'm not a fan of those remote investors, most second homeowners do use their properties throughout the year, not the week or two per year ascribed to them by the letter in the edge. All the publicity about this highlights the second homeowners and their ability to pay, but fails to acknowledge the adverse impact it will have on perhaps an even greater number of full-time residents, many of whom have owned their homes for a long time and are older, living on fixed incomes. Ironically, since this is intended to help lower-income families, it will also lead to higher rents to recoup the cost of the higher taxes. There is a cost to the town to implement this, $75,000 in this year's budget, not to mention the possibility that the high-end real estate values and assessments could decline as a result, leading to an even higher tax rate. Our second home community is an important resource for our town, paying our taxes for services they do not use, funding the arts, our nonprofits, and helping to keep our local businesses and tradespeople alive and functioning. Many people who buy second homes here are on the verge of retirement when they will move here full-time. Taxation is an important consideration for them. Do we want these people in our town, or would we prefer them to live in the surrounding towns with tax rates at 1/3 to 1/2 of ours, even before the tax hike from the residential tax exemption? These are factors that buyers consider. The residential tax exemption is very divisive and sends a message to second homeowners and those considering it that Great Barrington does not want them here. I completely disagree. We do need them here. With construction of a badly needed new high school already approved and the acquisition of Housatonic Waterworks being considered, not to mention our closed bridges, now is not the time to raise our taxes even on a portion of our community. Please vote no. Thank you.
Next.
Sharon Shalo, Thrushwood Lane. I'm a no. I hope you all are too. There's been a lot said about people who've lived here a long time and have had their assessments raised. Well, let me tell you what happened to my husband and me. We started to build a house here during the pandemic. We had chosen Great Barrington as the place we would retire and live on a fixed income. Materials rose during the pandemic. We paid more than we thought we were going to have to. But we did it, and we knew the taxes would be a little higher. What we were not prepared for was that in the 2.5 years we've been here, our property is now assessed at more than 40% over what we paid for it. So the assessment process is, I thought, wow, everybody in Great Barrington's tax assessments must have gone up so much. Well, no, because during the school debate, when people were proudly proclaiming that their taxes were going to go up a couple $100s a year, I did the calculator, and mine were going to go up another $1,900. This is on top of the 40% increase. Okay, the school's too big. We're probably never going to fill it, except we're going to bring in more choice and tuition kids that we're going to somehow supplement, but okay. So that's 1,900 more. And now the calculator at the really inappropriately named All Band Together site tells me that my taxes will go up another $2,345 with an RTE. So think about where we retired and what we're already being taxed. Why? I mean, why would you do this to people? And I've come to 3 town meetings now. I like Great Barrington a lot, but Great Barrington is not tightening its belt. It's not wrestling with its budget. And now it's trying to get a certain portion of us to pay more for that practice. So please, think about us. Please vote no.
Thank you.
Trevor Forbes, 325 North Plain Road. Chip, John, and Sharon have actually really said a lot of what I was going to say in the first place. But I just want to put it on record to the meeting how it does affect Great Barrington again and reiterate, because what this RTE will do is to discriminate against those people in Great Barrington who have bought houses and improved them and increased the value of those houses. We will be one of those because our house dates back to 1780, and if we hadn't put a lot of renovation and money into it, it would have started to fall down. That is what the RTE will partly be doing to Great Barrington. So if you want to see the actual quality of the housing stock in Great Barrington go down, vote yes. But if you want to retain the actual quality of the housing in Great Barrington, you have to vote no, because by putting money into your house, you're improving the value, you're going to be paying even more. And as Sharon has just pointed out, those property taxes have already gone up a lot. Our property tax has gone up 40% over the last few years, but it looks as though it could go up by another 30 to 40%. At that point, we probably have no option. Maybe we sell to a second homeowner. That's an option. But those people do not stay in our community full-time all the way throughout the year. They do not support all our retailers. And you've only got to look at Main Street and along Route 7 at the moment to understand that we have a problem maintaining the fabric, the retail fabric of this community. There are 2 other people you're going to be disadvantaging, and some of that has been said already. The people on fixed incomes. If they're in a house that's actually above the exemption limit, they're going to be spending even more, but they have a fixed income. They don't have an increase. This is something that basically will again force a group of people in the community to leave. And then, what about those people, as has been mentioned by John very eloquently just now, what about those people who've actually been here for their entire lives? Maybe they're living in a property that their parents had and their grandparents before them. Are they suddenly going to be affected by what is effectively an unrealized capital gain on their property? This is madness for this town to do this. And if you do it, you're committing this town to general decline. Thank you.
Yes.
Hi, David Long, 304 North Plain Road. I grew up in this town and I stayed and raised my kids here basically because of one thing, and that really is the diversity of people. You know, the well-to-do and the salt of the earth, the artists, the farmers, folks who traveled the world are the ones that, you know, never left Berkshire County. That mix is really the soul of this place. And I think we're really in danger of losing it, you know, having the bottom drop out from it. 40% of Great Barrington residents earn $50,000 a year or less. With a median home assessed value of $500K, and many of those making less actually have assessed houses that, you know, the town is saying is worth $500,000. You know, basically a third of their gross income is now the property tax. If you compare the guideline, the federal guideline for what's reasonable as a percentage of your income is 2% according to the feds. In reality, nationwide, that number is like 2.9%. But here we're talking about 13%. That's a pretty heavy burden. Compare that to a household that's making $250,000 a year in a $700,000 home. The tax bill is 1.3%. The difference between what just everyday folks actually pay, the impact of those taxes, is just disproportionate. So they end up paying, you know, it's 10 times the impact on somebody who's making $50,000, same services, same town, same everything. A flat rate sounds like it's fair, but it's not. It's the most regressive instrument the local government has. And it quietly is forcing our neighbors out, and the school bond and the Housatonic water crisis and failing bridges, all these is just going to make it worse. Massachusetts gives us the residential tax exemption as a way to help smooth this out. I've spent the last 6 months pouring through the assessor's data and Michael Wise's analysis, and the conclusion is unambiguous. The RTE reduces the tax burden for 90% of resident homeowners. 90%. Its impact is greatest where the burden is most unjust. And as Chip points out, it works well on the Cape. But he's saying it's all that different. Well, you know, actually, if we look at Barnstable's, you know, median income is very similar. The proportion of second homes in that one town is very similar. Barnstable is the sort of economic anchor for the Cape, just like Great Barrington is here in Berkshire County. It's got the only hospital on the Cape. It's where the working folks live.
David, we need to speed it up a little bit
Okay,
here.
I'm almost there.
Thank you.
So what happened in Barnstable? Basically, they adopted in 2016, the population grew by 5,000, residential tax rate fell by 27%, second home ownership remained stable, while neighboring towns hemorrhaged year-round residents. The program works so well that they've upped their exemption from 20 to 30% this year. And they're definitely committed.
David, we need to wrap it up.
Okay, I'm sorry. So none of the things that the opposition has claimed would happen actually happened in this town. I mean, these towns have held on to it in many cases for decades because it worked. And just another thing is, the last thing is, that the RTE is actually an acknowledgement for residents of all the things that they put in over the course of the year that never show up in a tax bill anywhere. They're the ones that coach our kids and sit on boards and take care of all of their neighbors and everything that's going on around. It's.
I think I'm going to have to ask you to wrap it up.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Okay, next speaker.
Myron Falchuk, 23 Burning Tree Road. I'm hoping to use simple terms and words to make the process easier to understand. The RTE, though having a good intention as originally spoken to, is a flawed proposal. It disproportionately targets second homeowners and certain primary homeowners as well. As has been pointed out, it has been allowed by the state since the late 1970s, a lot of years, but in that time period, only a few, maybe 5% or less of the more or less 20 communities of the 351 communities have actually adopted it. The reason for the low adoption rate hinges on many facts, including that although the RTE would decrease the tax on homes valued below a certain number, it would have an adverse impact on the resale value of existing homes to a much greater degree than the modest impact on the tax bill. This is not conjecture, but it was actually shown that the sales prices of homes in towns which have implemented the RTE versus prices of homes in a similar group of towns which have not implemented the RTE have been substantially impacted. Now, you can see this information by reading an article in The Edge published in the March 17th edition, which outlined the actual impact on these communities. In addition, the RTE may have an impact on new development in our town, as developers would not appreciate the extra burden on their projects. Prospective homeowners or those looking to build a new home would likely look at neighboring towns with significantly lower tax rates when choosing their homes. The unintended consequences of the RTE would be the possible drop in the town's tax base, further negatively impacting the town's tax revenue. Finally, I would like to point out that there were 7 citizens that proposed this particular exemption. On April 13th, one of the original group of 7 who proposed the petition of the RTE came out publicly and said he was having second thoughts about the advisability of adopting this position, urging that much more thought should be given before its adoption, understanding that the law of unintended consequences was lurking. If one of the founding fathers of the proposal is having second thoughts, I think we all should have second thoughts and vote no on this particular proposal.
Thank you.
Charles Ferris. There are many reasons, 5 Burning Tree Road. There are many reasons that I oppose the RTE. It doesn't raise money for the town. It'll cost $100,000 or more per year to administer with new employees needed in the assessor's office. And it will hand out tax breaks to roughly 1,000 or more taxpayers who don't need a tax break. It'll increase their discretionary income. There's no means testing for this exemption. And it shifts taxes on hundreds of millions of dollars of assessed value of the town to on the shoulders of about 500 second homeowners. You saw the figures up there. 15% of 3,600 is roughly 500. If you gave a 20% tax exemption out, that's 20% of $1.9 billion of assessed value. $300+ million of tax assessments being shifted onto the shoulders of 500 people. That's ridiculous. It doesn't work here because, as several speakers have already told you, on the Cape, when you shift the assessed values, you're shifting it to 60, 70, or 80% of the town, and only 10 or 20% of the assessed value is being shifted on a much higher percentage of people. It's going to force developers, as the last speaker said, to build in other towns. We're already ridiculously higher than other towns. If you raise our tax level another $2 per thousand, how many developers are going to say to themselves, that's going to be a lot easier to sell a house if I build it in Stockbridge or another surrounding town? But even if you don't care that some seniors are going to be forced out of their houses because their houses have appreciated, if you don't care that rents will be forced to rise, contrary to what was said in the beginning, if a person rents a house in a non-owner occupied 2 or 3 family house, those houses will not be eligible for the exemption, absent an unusual proving of affordable income, and that will cause rents to rise. I've been a real estate attorney in Great Barrington for 30 years. I have constantly seen people look at houses, let's say in Central County where taxes are higher, and say, never mind, beautiful lake houses, beautiful houses on mountains. They call their broker and then they say, oh wait, I just found out what the taxes are. Forget it. So if you adopt this proposal, when you go to sell your house, guess what? second homeowners are the people who are driving. Why do you think your houses have appreciated in value 2 or 3 times from what you paid for it? Because our market is being driven by second homeowners and retirees. So one speaker said there was no problem on the Cape. It's a wonderful program. Barnstable is one of the towns that saw an immediate 9%.
Need to move along here, Charlie.
Well, a lot of people were given more than the 3 minutes. I'll be done in 30 seconds, please. So Barnstable saw a 9% decline in home sale values. We have all saved and worked for our homes. If you would like to see a $25,000 or $50,000 decline in your home value, then vote in favor of the RTE. And I just want to make one comment on tenants. If a tenant living in a 2-family house with a $600,000 value at a 20% RTE, rents will go up on that house $1,300 plus.
Charlie, your 30 seconds are up.
The rent will go up $55.
Please sit down, Charlie. Your 30 seconds are up. Thank you.
I'll be brief. Michael Wise, 173 Castle Street.
I hear any motion must be made from the microphone. So if you want to make a motion, you have to go to the microphone.
I will be brief. As you've heard, the residential tax exemption gives a tax break to nearly all resident homeowners in Great Barrington. The break is biggest for homes that are likely owned by people with fewer means. Adopting it will help make our town more affordable for people who live and work here. The possible side effects that preoccupy the critics aren't big enough to negate those benefits. The side effects, where they're not speculative, are manageable. Rental effects vary. The rent will not change for units in the many duplexes and triplexes that can claim the exemption because one unit is occupied by the owner. Renters in the town's tax-exempt projects, of course, would not be affected. Admittedly, the nominally higher tax rate could lead to rent increases elsewhere by probably about 3%. Not a large number, but not zero. To protect renting residents, there's a state law program that can give property tax relief to long-term rental properties that meet affordability criteria. Through home rule legislation, we could apply the residential tax exemption itself to long-term rental properties. It's manageable. Senior citizens with low fixed incomes should not be concerned about paying a higher tax bill. State law already provides several means of relief for seniors with low incomes, but high property taxes, and all of them are still available to deal with increases that might result from adopting the residential exemption. The latest, which we have not adopted, would in effect double the residential exemption for seniors whose income level qualifies them for the other program, the senior circuit breaker. Claims about how comparatively high tax rates would dampen the market for what I call visitor properties, second homes and short-term rentals, are speculation. Demand on the Cape has not collapsed, and it would not collapse here. And these claims ignore how the residential tax exemption makes the effective tax rate vary. Thus, it makes it hard to compare rates between places with and without the exemption. The effective tax rate for nearly all resident homeowners here will be lower. That is the intended effect and benefit. If it costs less to own a property and live in it, and more to own the same property for part-time use or short-term rental, that should increase the value of the home someone lives in. The reason to adopt the residential tax exemption is not to prevent people with 2 or more homes from having one of those homes here. It is to help people who have one home here.
Thank you.
One of the places which adopted it is Concord, which did it for the same reasons. Am I out of time?
Yes. Thank you.
Hi, my name's Eric Brune. I'm at 264 Main Street. I have a technical question on the implications of this vote. This is directing the selectmen to vote or should vote. I mean, it's still optional for the selectmen, whatever the vote is. Is that accurate?
Hi, Eric. It's an advisory.
It's an advisory vote.
It is an advisory vote. That is correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, thank you, thank you, Michael. Vivian Orlowski, Lakeview Road. For about half my entire life, I've been a full-time, year-round, four-season Great Barrington resident, always living in my family home, purchased many decades ago, almost 40 decades ago, when my family was much larger, home prices were much lower, and Great Barrington real estate taxes were much, much smaller. While living full-time in Great Barrington, I've been a caretaker of disabled family members at home and worked in education, public health, and emergency services planning. These are the types of full-time residents that the RTE claims to help. But the RTE will not help and can likely push out of Great Barrington the people like me who worked in many community-oriented jobs and thus do not have a major retirement income. We may now be living here full-time on limited fixed income or have had setbacks due to our own family illness, disabilities, divorce, or death. Currently, I'm paying almost half my income in taxes due to the rapid increases in the assessed value of my large home. And I already use the circuit breaker, which Michael says will save us. I'm already using that to get by. And there are others who are in similar situation. The RTE is not progressive because it ignores actual income levels of full-time residents and taxes only on assessed values. If you qualify for a residential exemption this year, don't assume that it will continue. This was reported from Homes on the Cape, who replied to our town manager's survey. They have many residents who supported the RTE, thinking that because of their reduced income, but they found their assessed values became much higher than they expected. The town of Eastham, specifically, on the Cape, advised our town manager and select board, quote, "You cannot emphasize enough that it is not based on income. This will not support bringing our community together on vital issues that will impact us all. However you vote tonight, please join me in encouraging our Finance Committee and our Select Board to create an affordable Great Barrington Task Force so that we can develop methods that are really progressive and help those with all income levels to be an effective way to reduce costs and increase financial resources for the town. I served on the Economic Development Committee.
Vivian, we need to
And I have some suggestions for that, and I hope you'll join me in, however you vote, saying that before the Select Board votes, we need to see other ways that we can help everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. I see two more speakers.
Ellen Lahr, Pine Street, Housatonic. The other way that we can help ourselves and our community is, of course, by being much louder and much more aggressive about getting this state Senate bill passed that will help to reduce our share of school budget expenditures. I was one of the people involved in this committee, and I support the residential tax exemption, but I do not think it's a long-term solution. I think there's too many moving parts to it. I do think that it could be a short-term stopgap solution for some of the immediate issues that we're facing in the community. But if the Select Board is inclined to feel uncomfortable about this, which it's quite possible, then I think that they need to be right up front in advocating for the Senate Bill 400, as should we all. That is the long-term solution to our taxes in this community. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bob Braddock, 8 Blue Hill Lane, long-term resident of Great Barrington, full-time. In my view, redistribution of the tax burden is not the answer. It's divisive. And it seems to me that we need to focus on three things. Number one is getting the school budget allocation fixed and putting our focus and mind on that. Number two, really locking down our fiscal discipline, which I think everyone has spoken to at this town meeting with vigor. And number three, promoting business. Promoting the business community here that can improve our tax base and will bring services and more largesse to us all. Thank you. Vote
Thank
no.
you.
Please vote no.
I see we have a couple more people that have come up.
Karen Smith, 5 Monument Valley Road. I have a question. Most second homeowners do not put kids in the school district. Am I correct in that assumption? Number two, am I correct in my assumption that people who have second homes here pay personal property tax on what is in their home? And from my way of thinking, I don't like this bill at all. I think it's badly thought out, and I think what I would like to do, I'd like to charge the select board, the finance committee, and our new town manager, who I think is doing a heck of a great job, to really give them a chance to get this together along with what has been mentioned about the school. But I'd like to know, am I correct? If I'm a second homeowner and I'm not putting kids in my school and 70% of our budget is going towards the school, that seems counterproductive. And two, all the stuff in their house they pay tax on, I don't have to do that. I did when I owned a business. They taxed me on all my furniture, my computer, and all that other stuff. So I'm just curious if that can be answered. Thank you.
Through you, Mr. Moderator.
Yes.
I can answer yes.
Okay.
For both questions.
Okay, thank you. Michelle?
Michelle Lubert, 70 Division Street. We heard tonight that our second homeowner population is around 12.5%. Well, when the RTE came up, I did my own research because I don't trust what anybody tells me, so I get my own information. And just as an example, I reached out to the Cape, and I'm just going to pick one town at the Cape. It was Wellfleet, and the assessor in Wellfleet responded to an email. I inquired as far as their ratio with residential and second homeowners. And Wellfleet responded, our split is around 63% non-resident to 37% resident. The RTE works best with a wide split. The closer you get to 50-50, the less effective it is. So think about it. We're at 12.5%. Also, nobody has brought up the impact on commercial. Now we're talking about economic development. I brought up, I wanted some information on a split tax rate. I was told it wouldn't work in Great Barrington because about 16% is commercial in Great Barrington. Mr. Wise himself said by default, the residential tax exemption is a split tax rate. Our commercial properties don't qualify for the exemption. So they're going to be paying more. So let's look at this. Is this the time to do this? I encourage our voters to vote no. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other comments before we come to a vote on this? Okay, we'll vote on it. I'm going to ask the tellers to come in and count this. I don't know whether it'll be close or not, but I'd like to have a record of the vote. So let's give the tellers some time to get in place. I'll read the motion one more time. Voted that the Select Board should implement the residential tax exemption provided by Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 59, Section 5C, at its next annual tax classification hearing. That is what we're voting on. All in favor of the motion, please raise your cards. Are we all set? All those opposed? I'm not sure we needed the tellers. Still think it's important to have the number. Okay, go ahead, Terry.
4 yes, 23 no.
Next.
3 yes, 13 no.
18 yes, 31 no.
0 yes, 17 no.
3 yes and 11 no's.
Okay. 23, 33, 36, 67, 77, 84, and 11. I have 95 no. 7, 15, 25, 3, 18, 21, 3 is 24, 4, and 28 yes. So the motion fails, and the time is, let's find it here. Okay. 8:15. Okay. All right. Now, I'd like to, our final motion is to authorize the Article 30. Michael, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. The last sentence I was going to say in the last part was, a vote here will assure the Select Board they're not sticking their necks out. I can read the room. The motion I have is that we take no action on Article 30.
Do we have a second? Okay. Are there any comments or questions? Seeing none, I would, all those in favor of the motion? All those opposed? The motion does not carry at 8:17. The motion does carry, excuse me. The original motion has been abandoned, so.
Motion to adjourn?
A motion to dissolve the meeting?
Okay. Do I have a motion to dissolve the meeting? We do. We do.
I just made it.
Second? All those in favor? Aye. Aye. Opposed? Good night, and thank you very much for your patience.